everybody, it's me, Tess, with Tess Loves Yarn. And you guys, we are here today to talk about the much requested easy granny square cardigan tutorial, okay? Now this is going to be in two parts. This is the first part where we are going to talk about how we want our cardigans to fit us, how we figure out how to make it fit us, and how to know how many granny squares we need to make the cardigan. Okay, so before we get into all of this, I quickly want to say, if you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much for being here with me today. I have so much gratitude and appreciation in my heart for each and every one of you. And y'all know I love my crochet friends, okay? Now, if you're new here and you like me and you like this video, after watching it, I would be absolutely tickled pink if you'd hit that subscribe button. It really helps YouTube know that you're liking what I'm putting out there, and they support me better by pushing my videos out to more people, which helps me and other makers continue to make videos for you. So yeah, please subscribe. Now, let's get into this video and how we are actually going to do it. The first thing that I want to talk about is what you're going to need to do this. You are going to need the granny square that you want to use to make the cardigan. So obviously that's your yarn, your hook, a darning needle, little scissors, because you need to make a granny square, a completed granny square. The other thing that you're going to need is a piece of paper, a measuring tape, because we are going to take our measurements and we are going to write them down. So you need a piece of paper, measuring tape, a pen or pencil. And if you do not want to do very simple math in your head, then grab a calculator. And let me tell you, I'm a retired teacher and I still grab that calculator. So yeah, it's a thing, right? So grab those items really quickly. And if I'm going to briefly touch on this, if you are a person who does not like math or who is petrified of math, no worries. This is easy, and I am going to be holding your hand all the way through it. So no worries. All right. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to make our granny square. And that is the granny square that you're going to use to make this cardigan. I want you to make a completed granny square, and I want you to take your tape measure and measure it. That granny square needs to be a whole number, and that just simply means no fractions. It has to measure very approximately close to 3 inches, 4 inches, 5 inches, 6 inches, whatever you want to use on your measurement. Now, if you're anywhere else in the world and you're using the metric system, it needs to measure an even centimeter amount, as in no decimal. So your decimals need to be like 10.0. 14.0, whatever your centimeters are for your square, it needs to be 0.0, okay? Now, after you get your granny square made, then you're going to measure it. Now, if it's not a whole number, then you could do an easy trick, go up a hook size, remake the granny square with a larger hook, which will make it bigger. Remake the granny square with a smaller hook, which will make it smaller. Or you can simply add a round or take a round away. Skip around, more or less, okay? If you need to, you can add a round of half double crochets. That usually will increase the square by about 1/2 inch. So these are little tricks you can use, and you can experiment with that and see how your granny square, how you can get your granny square to a whole number. So once you have that, then put your granny square measurement at the top of your page. My granny square is 6 inches, and that's my granny square. I'm using a 6-inch granny square. Okay, so you can do that. Just write down what your granny square is, no matter what that measurement is, as long as it's that whole number. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our measurements, and we're going to start out with our 3 measurements first that you're all going to be totally familiar with. That's your chest measurement, your waist measurement, and your hip measurement. Now, when you're taking your chest measurement, it doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man. You're going to go to the largest part of your chest. That's your bust line, which is usually about 2 inches down from your armpit. That's going to be about the biggest part of your chest. You're going to take that actual measurement. You're not going to like squeeze it tight, and you're not going to be too loose at it either. You're going to be like Goldilocks. You're going to be just right. Okay? And you're going to write that measurement down. You're going to put chest and that measurement. Then you're going to go to your waist. You're going to do the same thing with your waist. Put that measurement down, write waist, and put it down. Then you're going to go to your hip if your cardigan is going to be long enough to reach your hips, or if it will be longer, that it will be going past your hip. Then you're going to want your hip measurement. Now, some people like those shorty cardigans that kind of end at the waist. If you're one of those people, don't worry about that hip measurement. You don't need it, okay? If it's going to be down to your hip or longer, take your hip measurement. Now what we need to do is we need to take a couple of other measurements that you're probably not quite as familiar with. The first one we're going to do is our arm circumference. And what that means is you're just going to measure around the biggest part of your upper arm. And that is usually your bicep. So that is usually like right here, which is halfway between your shoulder and your elbow. This is your bicep, and it is usually the biggest part of your upper arm. You're just going to take your tape measure, and you're just going to measure all the way around that, just like this. And then you're going to write that measurement down. Arm circumference, you can abbreviate, okay? Then the next measurement we need is your arm length, depending on where you want your sleeve to end. Now, if you're like me and you want a full sleeve, you're going to measure down to the wrist. If you want a 3/4, you're going to stop halfway between the elbow and the wrist. Or if you want a short sleeve, you're going to stop at the elbow, okay? Now, where you're going to start your measurement might be a little bit of a surprise to all of you. And we're doing it this way because of the construction of a crochet garment, especially granny squares. You are going to take your measuring tape. You're going to make sure it's at 0. I have a little extra, so I fold it over so I can get a more accurate measurement. But you're going to go under your arm into your armpit. So you're going to take your tape measure, you're going to put it at your armpit, and you're going to squeeze it down and hold it. And then you're simply going to pull your arm out, and you're going to get that reading wherever you want your arm sleeve to stop, okay? And then you're going to write that down, and that is going to be your arm length, all right? So now you have that measurement, you have one more measurement, and you're done. And that is going to be the cardigan length that you want. So determine how long you want your cardigan to be. For me, I want it to come down to my hip. You may only want it to come to your waist, or you may want it to go all the way to your knees, right? So determine that. And then the most accurate way to measure that is actually a way that you need a little help. So if you have a family member or a friend nearby or a neighbor who can help you with this measurement, that's good. If you don't, no worries. I'll show you how to do it another way. But if you do have help, take your tape measure and go measure from the back. You're going to put this at the base of your neck. You have a bone, like this little bony thing that kind of sticks out. You're going to put your tape measure there, and then you're going to measure down your back to wherever you want that cardigan to stop. And that is going to be your cardigan length measurement. Now, if you don't have someone to help you with that measurement, no worries. We can get approximately the same measurement by doing it from the front. Now, what you're going to do if you're doing it from the front, you have a little divot at the bottom of your neck where your neck is kind of attached to your torso. That little divot, you're going to stick that tape measure into that little divot right there. And then if you're a woman, you're going to come in between here because you don't want to add any extra measurements, any extra length to your garment, right? So if you're like, you know, a busty person, that's going to add a lot to your measurement, right? So you want to come in between. If you're a guy, you don't have to worry about that, right? And you're going to just measure straight down to where you want your cardigan to end. So that would be your cardigan length, all right? And that's pretty approximate. So there you go. Those are our measurements that we are going to be doing some very basic math with to figure out how we want our cardigan to fit us and how many squares we need to make. Now, the only other thing we need to decide on when making garments, there is something called ease. There is either negative ease or positive ease. Since this is a cardigan and it is designed to wear over clothing, we don't have to worry about negative ease. So I'm not even going to talk about that. We're going to go straight into what positive ease is. This is a little extra wiggle room in your garment. Now, if you like your cardigan to be more fitted, you're going to add 2 inches to the 3 measurements of your chest, waist, and hip. If you like your cardigan to be more loosely fitted, you're going to add 4 inches. This is how I like my cardigan. So I'm adding 4 inches. Now, if you want your cardigan to be oversized, you're going to add 6 inches to those 3 measurements, okay? So all you're going to do is decide on the ease. That's either 2, 4, or 6 inches, and you're going to write that down underneath your measurement. My ease I like is however many inches, all right? And now what we're going to do is I am going to turn the camera down, and I'm going to show you my actual measurements, and I'm going to take you through step by step how to figure all these things out to get your cardigan to fit you perfectly, and to also let you know how many granny squares you need to make. All right? So here we go, everybody. Hang tight with me, and I will get this camera turned down, and we will get into it. I'm so excited. Here we go. Okay, so everybody grab your paper with your measurements on it and grab your little calculator, all right? So right here you can see these are my measurements. My chest is 38 inches, my waist is 34 inches, my hip is 40 inches, my arm circumference is 12 inches, my arm length from my armpit to my wrist is 17 inches, and I want my sweater to be 28 inches long, all right? Now, here's where we talked about positive ease. Closely fitted is 2 inches, loosely fitted is 4 inches, and oversized is 6 inches or even up to 8 inches, all right? So now we come down here, and I am going to once again remind you that there's no ease added to your arm length or your sweater length, all right? And now how we're going to figure out how many squares we need to do our how many squares we need, blah, to make is very simple math. We're going to do our 17 inches, which is my arm length measurement. So you use your arm length measurement, and you're going to divide that by the size of your square. Now remember, my square is 6 inches. Your square might be 5 inches or 4 inches, deciding, depending, on your preference and the size of the cardigan you're going to be making, correct? So with me, I'm going to take 17 inches and I'm going to divide that by 6 inches because that's how big my square is. That equals 2.8 inches. Now, that's almost 3 inches right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to round up to 3, okay? And now I know that I need 3 squares going down the length of my arm to make my arm all the way to the wrist, okay? So that's 3 squares. So I'm just going to underline that 3. Now for my sweater length, I want 28 inches. Once again, my squares are 6 inches, okay? So I'm going to take 28 inches and I'm going to divide it by 6 inches, and that's going to give me 4.6 inches. Now, if you are a tall person, you might want to round up, or if you're a short person like me, I'm almost 5'2", you might want to round down. Now I'm choosing to round down, so I am going to say I need 4 squares going down to get approximately the length I want, okay? Now, the remaining measurements that we have, the chest, the waist, the hip, if you so chose to make your cardigan that long, and your arm circumference are the measurements that you need to add your positive ease to, which is right up here that we talked about. I'm using 4 inches. So my 38 bust measurement is now going to be 38 plus 4, which is giving me 42 inches. My waist measurement, which is 34 inches, plus that positive ease of 4 inches, is now going to be 38 inches. And if you use centimeters, if you're not in the US, if you're in any other part of the world, you use the metric system, just substitute centimeters for inches here. Just making sure that it's a whole number for your granny square measurement. Once again, okay? Now for my hip measurement, since I chose to make my cardigan long enough to come down to my hip, I'm using 40 inches plus the 4-inch positive ease of a loose fit, okay? So that's going to give me a total of 44 inches for my hip. Now, my arm circumference is 12 inches at the biggest part of my arm, okay? So I'm adding my 4 inches of positive ease to that number, and that is giving me 16 inches. Now, to figure out how many squares we're going to need, you're going to take your new measurement using your positive ease. That's these measurements right here. Your 42, your 38, your 44, and your 16, because that's your original measurement plus your positive ease measurement, okay? Now we are going to divide these numbers over here by the size of our granny square, which my square is 6 inches. Remember, you use the number that your square measures. If you're using 6 inches, then a 6-inch square, then you're going to divide it by 6. But if your square is smaller, 5 inches or 4 inches, you're going to divide this number, your new measurement number, by the size of your granny square, okay? So I am taking 42 inches divided by my 6-inch square, and that gives me a measurement of 7. So here we go. 42 divided by my 6-inch square, and that equals 7. See that? Can y'all see that, oops, that equals 7. Okay? Can you, yeah, 7. So I'm going to write my 7 down right here. Now I'm going to take my waist measurement, which is the new measurement of 38, because that includes my positive ease, and I'm going to divide that by 6. So that is going to be 38 divided by my 6-inch square, and that equals 6.3. Now don't freak out. 6.3 is now for me a number that I really don't need to worry about because it's smaller than the 7. Okay? So now I'm going to go to my hip measurement. And on my hip measurement, I have 44 inches divided by my 6-inch square, and that's going to equal 7.3. Now what I'm going to do, since 7.3 is not an even number and it's slightly bigger than this, I'm going to round this number. Now if this number equaled a 5 plus, if this was 7.5 blah blah blah, I would round it up. But since it's less than 7.5, I'm going to round that number down. So now my biggest numbers in this little chart is going to be 7 right here, because you're always going to round up or down based on this leftover remaining part. If this next number after your decimal is a 5 or above, you're going to go up on your measurement, and we would have gone up to a 7. If this number is lower than 5, like the 7.3 measurement, then you're going to go down, round down, and that's going to make that 7. So the biggest number in this column is 7. So that is the number we are going to use to determine how many squares we need to go, to go around our body or across our body, the circumference of our body. That is going to be 7 squares, okay? So very easy. Now, if you are confused by this, rewind it and play this part again, okay? So I'm going to be using 7 squares across, okay? Just to know how many squares needs to go around me to fit my measurement, it's going to be 7. 7 squares have to go around my body. So if this is my body, okay, these are my legs, these are my arms, here's my head. I'm going to need 7 squares to go around my torso, all right? So 7 squares. So circle that 7 squares right like that. Now we're going to go to our arm circumference. We have 16 inches because we did add our circumference, our original actual measurement. We added 4 inches to that because of the positive ease. So now we're going to do 16 inches divided by our square, which is a 6-inch square. Remember, these are our granny square measurement, okay? So this actually equals 2.6. Now this number right here is above a 5, this number. So I am going to round up because I like a looser fit. I'm going to round up to 3, okay? So now we have some important numbers. We have 3, we have 7, all right? Now, to figure out the granny squares that we need for our arms, we are going to use our arm circumference granny square total of 3, plus we're going to use our arm length granny square number, which is also 3, because we've already figured that out, remember? So we are going to need 3 squares down and 3 squares around to fit our arms, all right? So that equals 9 squares, but you have 2 arms, so you are going to multiply. So this is going to be 9 times 2, because you have 2 arms. That is going to equal 18 squares. 18 squares, okay? Now we're going to figure out how many squares we need for our actual body. And for our actual body, we need our sweater length amount. So we're going to go back up here to sweater length. And we have determined that what I want to do, because I'm short, instead of rounding up for a tall person, I am short. Even though this number is over 5, since I am so short, I am going to round down. And my new number right here is going to be 4 squares. So my length is 4 squares down, and we know that I am going to need 7 squares across, because we figured that out right here when we did these measurements, the chest, the waist, and the hip. We determined that for my torso, I needed 7 squares across. Now your number may be different, okay? And that's all right if it is. It's based on your measurements. So for me, I need 4 squares down and 7 squares around. So I am simply going to do 4 times 7. Simple multiplication, right? Use your calculator. 4 times 7. If you can't think of that in your head, and that's okay if you can't. There are people who are not math people no matter what, all right? That is going to equal 28 squares right there. 28 squares. So how we determine the amount of squares that we need to make to have enough squares to put this cardigan together is now super, super simple. It is simply these 2 numbers added together. We need the amount of squares for our arms, which is 18 squares, and we're going to add the amount we need for our length and our torso squares around, which we have already just determined is 28 squares. We are going to add these. So a simple 18 plus 28 now gives us a total amount of 46 squares. So I need 46 squares to make my cardigan equals my cardigan, okay? So you are going to use these calculations to figure out how many squares you need for your cardigan, okay? You're simply going to substitute your measurements in here with the ease that you have chosen, and you're going to do these simple calculations. Now, remember, if you get confused on any part of this, just rewind and watch this again. If you are still confused, drop me a comment in the comment section and I will get back to you as soon as possible and help you. I am here for you. Don't worry. Okay? So now I know I need 46 squares. All right? And I am making 46 of my granny squares, and this is my granny square that I am using. This is going to be a summer cardigan for me to carry around when I go into air-conditioned buildings. Here in the Midwest, we can get pretty hot in the summer, but oh my gosh, sometimes you go into a building and you literally freeze to death. It's so uncomfortable. So I'm making this summery pattern, which I've made into like a flower. And I'm using it just to take with me for when I need something to put on inside an air-conditioned building. Now, if you want to make your cardigan for the fall and you just want to get a head start on it, just change up the colors. Use whatever colors you want. If you want to use fall colors or winter colors, or if it doesn't matter to you if they're fall colors or winter colors, you know, it's all about you. It's your cardigan, all right? This is what I've chosen to do. So that is how we're going to do the easy peasy math method for figuring out how many squares we need to make our cardigan. Now, to figure out how to put this cardigan together, it's another pretty easy design, because we are going to be joining all of our squares together. Now, I have a video, and I will link it below, on how to join. Now, when you're joining your squares, you do not want to use a join that is going to add to your measurements. Now, when I say that, I mean you're not going to use like a Jacob's ladder or a lattice join. You want to use a join that is going to put your squares together like this. I mean, you're going to butt them right up next to each other. What I recommend doing is the join that I do, which is a slip stitch join. Now, I will link that video tutorial in the description below, so you can check that out. But you want your join to be just like this, because if it's not, you are going to add to your overall garment size. If you use a join that adds, you know, that's not right up like this, like an invisible seam or a slip stitch join, a join like that, you're going to make your cardigan actually bigger than you want, because it's going to add to the measurement, because your stitches are really, your squares are really going to be further apart based on the join you use. You see that? If you use a lattice join or a Jacob's ladder, sometimes people call it, you're going to get like that much of a gap, okay? Because that join adds that much to your project. If you use a join like I'm suggesting, you're not adding any more to the actual measurement of your garment, Okay, so please keep that in mind. It's very important. And when you're using a slip stitch join, you need to go up a full hook size. I usually use a 5mm hook to make my granny squares. I will use a 6mm or even a 6.5mm hook to do my join. If you don't, your joins will start to pucker. It's just science. Okay, so your join has to be a little looser. All right, so I just want to throw that out there so you guys don't make that mistake. All right, so the construction of your cardigan then. Now I have some graph paper here. I just bought this little composition notebook at Walmart, and I use graph paper when I design all of my patterns. Okay, it's just easier for me to use. So for the back of your cardigan, you want an odd number of squares. Now for my measurements, now I'm going to tell you what these measurements. Solid lines are full squares. These red lines are half squares because half of the square is here and the other half is here. What that means is that square is, they're like going on the sides, right? So you can't see them. And when they join, this is your fold line right here. You're going to be folding your piece in half after it's all joined. So this is actually right here is actually the top of your shoulder. This is the top of your shoulder and your sleeve. This is your sleeve. This is the top of your shoulder. This empty part here where there are no squares is the opening. You need a neck opening. So here's the back of your outfit, because remember, you're going to fold this in half right here. And this is going to become the front of your cardigan, and this is the back of your cardigan. These are going to become your sleeves. I like loose sleeves. This is why I chose to put this many squares in my sleeves, okay? And this is based on my sleeve measurements, all right? Now, let's test this. When I did the math, it said I needed 46 of my 6-inch squares, okay? So to count these, this is a half sleeve because we're joining this when we fold it, all right? It's going to give us slight shaping, not big major shaping, because this is an easy beginner pattern, okay? So it's going to give us some slight shaping here. So I'm going to say this and this is really only one square. So we have 1, 2, 3 squares, 4, 5, 6, 7 squares. And now when we come up here, this is a half a square, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and count these as a whole square right now, but I'm not going to count this other side, okay? Because we're already counting this as a whole square. I hope that makes sense. So we have 3 and 4. We have 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. And then we've already counted these over here. So we're not going to count these. So we have 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, because this makes a whole square. These two halves make a whole square. Okay, so that's 44, 45, 46. Bingo! Right on the money. Okay, 46 squares. Now, you guys, do not let this freak you out. Okay? Don't even worry about this right now, because we're going to do this together in the next video. All right? For right now, all you need to do is figure this part out right here. Figure this part out and figure out how many squares you need to make. And then you need to make those squares. Now, don't worry. I'm not going to come back next week and say, oh, do you have all your squares made? Because we're going to do this now. No. I'm going to give you about a month to do this. We're going to come back in June because we are almost at the end of May right now. We're going to come back in June and we are going to do this part together. Okay? I'm going to show you exactly how to join your squares. It doesn't matter how many you have, so don't even look at this. I'm just giving you some simple information and proving to you that when you do the simple math, it is going to work out when you put your granny squares together. Okay? That's all I'm trying to show you here. I'm not trying to overwhelm you. So do not worry about this part. We're going to do this together. All right? You're going to make a note on your calendar to come back and check out my video in about another 4 weeks. Okay, so that's the end of the video. Remember, this was only part 1. Part 2 is coming in about 4 weeks. Leave me a comment below. Let me know if there's anything that you don't understand that you need clarification on, or just leave me a comment and let me know if you're excited about this video. I know I am. So thank you all for being here. Remember, if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button and make me happy. Thank you, everybody. Y'all know what's next. Be kind and be safe out there in the world, no matter where you are. See you all soon. Bye.